I never thought I'd find myself in this kind of mess, but here I am, trying to make sense of something that feels like it's been ripped straight out of a nightmare. I met Emily when I was deployed overseas. She was the wife of a buddy of mine, but somehow, she started sending me flirty messages during my second tour. At first, I thought it was just harmless BS, a distraction from the crap I was going through, but then I started noticing more things, little things. Her texts became more frequent, more intimate. She'd call at odd hours, and I swear she'd get defensive if I ever asked about her whereabouts or who she was talking to. When I came back home, I assumed things would settle down, but they didn't. Emily started acting weird, secretive, dismissive. She'd brush me off when I asked her about her day, and she'd get defensive when I'd ask why she seemed so anxious or stressed. The sex between us wasn't what it used to be. It was almost like she was avoiding me, and I'd catch her staring at her phone more than usual. I told myself I was paranoid, that maybe I'd just come back from combat with a chip on my shoulder, but deep down I knew something was off. Then came the PTSD therapy sessions. I thought they were helping me, actually. I was finally processing the crap I'd seen, dead friends, explosions, the whole 9 yards. I'd sit in on some of the sessions, just to understand what was happening. Emily knew about my therapy, knew I was trying to get better, but I didn't realize she was planning her own game right under my nose. I started noticing her car parked outside the therapist's office more often, and she'd be talking on the phone in her car for what seemed like hours. I never suspected anything until I found that damn USB drive. Just a cheap, little device I kept in my pocket or in my desk drawer, mostly for backups of my therapy notes and recordings. One night, I was going through some of my session recordings, listening to the old therapy stuff, trying to relax after a long day. I was half dozing when I overheard something that made my blood run cold. It was a conversation. I don't know if it was recorded deliberately or accidentally, but I heard Emily's voice. She wasn't talking to her therapist, she was talking to someone else. Someone I didn't recognize at first, but then I caught the words plan and meeting and tonight. That's when I realized she wasn't just seeing her therapist. She was planning something with whoever that was. I replayed it a dozen times, trying to make sense of it. My gut sank. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. It wasn't just that she was cheating. No, it was that she'd been doing it right under my nose during the one place I thought I was safe. Her lies, her manipulations, it all hit me at once. The woman I thought I knew was a stranger, and the safe space I'd trusted, the therapy that was supposed to help me heal, turned into my betrayal ground zero. I couldn't even breathe. I didn't want to believe it. I kept asking myself, how long has this been going on? Was I so blind? Did I mean nothing to her? That's when I decided I had enough. I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed to prepare myself for whatever came next. The thing was, I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty. I thought I was doing the right thing by trying to get better, and now I realized she'd been lying to me through her teeth. I'd been vulnerable, trusting her with my trauma, and she was out there scheming, cheating on me, probably having sex with some guy she met at her therapist's office or during her supposed therapy sessions. It was like my worst fears had come true, and I felt so betrayed. I didn't know if I wanted to cry or lash out. I knew I needed a plan. I couldn't just confront her blindly. I needed proof, something concrete. That's when I decided I'd do what I never thought I'd have to do. I'd set a trap. I'd catch her in the act, or at least prove beyond any doubt that she was cheating. I started digging through her phone, her emails, her social media accounts, trying to find anything. I didn't want to believe she'd be stupid enough to keep some kind of trail, but I also knew she's good at lying. Still, I had to try. And I did find something. A text exchange that was too explicit, too suggestive. A photo she sent someone. No, not just a sexy selfie, but a picture of her in the car with her legs spread just enough, a caption that said, "Can't wait to see you tonight." That was the moment I knew everything I suspected was true. She wasn't just seeing her therapist, she was sleeping with him, or with someone she met during her sessions. Whatever it was more than I could accept. I felt like I was going to throw up. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a damn assault on everything I believed in. I'd trusted her with my secrets, my pain, my trauma, and she was out there using that to cheat on me, probably to get her rocks off, to feel powerful for once. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my chair, staring at those messages, trying to figure out what to do next. I knew I couldn't just keep quiet. I had to confront her. That's if I was even going to speak to her at all. But I also knew something else. Once I did, my life would never be the same. Whatever this was, it was bigger than just an affair. It was a betrayal of trust I'd never recover from. And honestly, I didn't know if I wanted to. I was furious, heartbroken, and utterly lost all at once. My mind kept spinning, wondering how I was going to face her, how I was going to live with this revelation. The woman I loved, the woman I was planning to grow old with, was out there planning her next move with him. And I was left sitting there broken, trying to figure out if I even had a choice anymore. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. I couldn't sleep after that night of digging through her stuff. My mind kept replaying those messages, that photo, and the sickening realization that she'd been lying to my face for months. She always loved to act like she was the victim, like everything was someone else's fault. Her bitchy attitude, her constant lies, her dismissiveness. Now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulator, a liar, a cheat, someone who saw my trauma as an opportunity rather than a barrier. I needed to see her. I had to confront her face to face, but I didn't want to just jump into it blindly. I needed to set a trap to see if she'd slip up or say something she shouldn't. I decided I'd go home early from work, stake out the house, and catch her in the act if I could. I wasn't going to let her know I'd found out. That way, I could observe her behavior, see if she was planning her next move, or maybe even get her to admit something on her own. So I left work early, parked a block away, and watched her car pull into the driveway. She looked annoyed, like I was interrupting her day. That already told me a lot. She was acting guilty, that's for sure. I saw her get out, grab her purse, and head inside. I stayed in my car, trying to breathe evenly, trying to keep my head clear. I knew I had to stay calm, no matter what I saw. I had to be smart. I waited for about 10 minutes, then decided to go in quietly through the back door. I didn't want her to know I was there yet. I crept into the house, trying to move silently. That's when I saw her. Emily was in the living room on her phone, texting someone. I couldn't see who, but her posture was too relaxed, too familiar. She was giggling at something, and I could see the glow of the screen reflecting off her face. My blood ran cold. That was the moment I realized I'd caught her red-handed. I stood there in the doorway, all the adrenaline rushing through me, watching her. She didn't notice me at first. Then she looked up, eyes wide with surprise. That smirk she always threw when she was trying to cover something up, it was there. She put her phone down quickly, trying to hide it behind her back, but it was too late. I'd seen enough. "Who the hell are you texting?" I asked, my voice rough and trembling. She blinked, quickly trying to switch her story. "It's nothing, just a friend, you're overreacting." "Yeah, right," I clenched my fists. I'd had enough of her lies. A friend. That's funny because I saw the messages. The ones you sent last night, the one with the picture. What's really going on, Emily?" She scoffed, rolling her eyes, acting like I was the crazy one. "You're paranoid. Maybe you're the one who's been messing around, huh? You've been distant, cold. Maybe I was just trying to find someone who actually cares." Her voice was bitchy, sharp, like she was trying to turn it around on me. That made my blood boil. I didn't want to hear her shit anymore. I just wanted the truth. "Don't play that game," I said, voice louder now. "You've been lying for months. I saw the damn recordings. You're planning, you're scheming. You're sleeping with him, aren't you? The therapist or whoever he is. I know you're cheating, Emily." Her eyes flickered for a second, then she laughed, mocking, bitter. "Oh, please, you think I'd cheat on you? You're the one who's always shut me out. I just needed someone to talk to, someone who understands what I'm going through. You're so self-absorbed with your trauma, you don't even see what's happening right in front of you." That was a lie, of course. A big, fat lie. I knew better now. I'd seen enough. I couldn't believe I was standing there, listening to her deny everything, twisting it into my fault. I felt like I was losing my mind. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd trusted, she was just a manipulative bitch. I was beyond furious. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her admit the truth, but I held back. Don't bother denying it, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I've got the proof. The messages, the recordings. I know you're cheating on me with that therapist. You've been planning this behind my back while I was trying to get better. Her expression flickered, maybe a hint of guilt. No, I told myself, that's just her acting. She's good at lying. I turned around and walked out of the house, my mind spinning. I felt betrayed, broken, and humiliated. How could she do this to me? How could she turn what was supposed to be a safe space, my therapy, my healing, into her ground zero for betrayal? I knew then that I couldn't stay silent. I had to decide what to do next, but I already knew. My marriage, the trust I once had, was shattered. There was no coming back from this. I sat in my car for a few minutes trying to gather my thoughts. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of rage and sadness. I wanted to confront her again, to make her admit everything, but what was the point? She was a master liar, and I was sick of her excuses, her manipulations. I realized I was at a crossroads. Either I fought to save what was left, or I cut my losses and got out before it destroyed me completely. The truth was, I didn't think I could survive knowing she'd been so willing to betray me, especially during the one thing I desperately needed, healing. I'd poured my soul into that therapy, into trying to fix myself, and now I found out it was just a game for her. That betrayal cut deeper than any explosion or death I'd ever seen overseas. It was personal. It was raw. And it made me question everything I thought I knew about loyalty, love, and myself. After I got out of her house, I sat in my car for what felt like forever, just staring at the steering wheel, trying to piece together what I just uncovered. The rage was simmering under the surface, but beneath that was this crushing sense of betrayal, like I'd been hit in the gut so hard I couldn't breathe. All those years we'd spent building a life, a marriage based on promises and trust, shattered in a matter of minutes. I kept replaying her words, her smirk, her dismissive attitude, the way she lied so easily, like breathing. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just walk away without confronting her again, not without some kind of plan. I wanted to make her see how much she'd hurt me, how much she'd betrayed everything I believed in. But I also knew I had to be smart about it. If I just stormed back in and started yelling, she'd deny everything, call me crazy, throw in some more lies, maybe even turn the tables and accuse me of cheating or messing around. That was her style, twist the truth, make me doubt myself. I'd seen her do it too many times before. So I made a decision. I was going to record everything from now on. Not just to catch her in the act if she slipped up again, but to have undeniable proof. I didn't trust her anymore, not at all. I started setting up a small hidden camera in the living room, somewhere she wouldn't notice. I'd also get a voice recorder and hide it in my pocket if I had to. I needed her to slip up again, and I knew she would. With her bitchy attitude and habit of lying, it was only a matter of time. While I was setting everything up, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of disgust and sadness. I'd loved Emily once more than anything, but now I was starting to see her for what she truly was. A manipulative, selfish woman who used my trauma as an excuse to cheat, lie, and betray me. The woman I thought was my partner, my wife, had been playing me for months. I felt like my entire world was crumbling, but I also knew I had to stay calm, keep my head clear. That night I stayed up late, watching the recordings I'd made, listening to her lies, catching her sneering at me, dismissing my healing process. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she be so cold, so calculating? I remembered her bitchy attitude, how she'd always brush me off when I needed her most, how she'd manipulate every situation to her favor. It was like I'd married a stranger who pretended to be someone I once knew. I also remembered how she'd try to guilt-trip me about my PTSD, saying I was too fragile or drama queen whenever I needed her support. Meanwhile, she was out there, screwing around with her therapist, planning secret meetings and laughing at my expense. That made me furious. I thought about all the times I'd been vulnerable, crying in her arms, trusting her to understand my pain. And now I knew that trust was just a lie. I couldn't sleep after that. I kept going over everything in my head, trying to figure out what I was going to do next. I knew I had to confront her again, but I also knew I couldn't do it without a plan. I'd spend the next few days gathering more evidence, making sure I had everything I needed before I faced her again. I didn't want her to spin her lies anymore. I wanted the truth, raw and unfiltered, to hit her back like a punch to the gut. The worst part wasn't just the betrayal itself, it was how she'd used my trauma against me. She knew I was vulnerable, that I was trying to heal, and she exploited that. She turned what should have been a safe space for me into her playground. I felt such deep anger and disgust that I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I was the guy who went overseas to fight for his country, and now I was just a shattered shell, trying to piece his life back together after realizing everything I believed in was a lie. I started questioning everything, my judgment, my instincts, even my worth. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind to her true nature. But deep down, I knew I couldn't blame myself. She was good at hiding her true self. That's what made her dangerous. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much she'd manipulated me, how much she enjoyed putting me through this emotional hell. She always loved to be the victim, the one in control, and now I saw that her bitchy attitude and constant lies were just part of her game. As the days went on, I felt more determined. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to make her face what she'd done. I started preparing for the inevitable confrontation, what I'd say, how I'd say it, what evidence I'd show. I knew she'd deny everything, call me paranoid, accuse me of cheating myself, but I didn't care anymore. I just wanted the truth out in the open, even if it shattered everything. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at her phone, waiting for her to slip up again. Every time she'd pick it up or text someone, I'd feel my pulse quicken. I was walking a tightrope between anger and heartbreak. I kept telling myself I deserved better, that I'd be better off without her lies and manipulation. But part of me still loved her, even after everything I knew she'd done. That's what made it so damn complicated. I wanted to hate her, I wanted to destroy her, but that part of me that still cared wouldn't let go. And so I waited, biding my time. I knew the day of reckoning was coming. I didn't have all the answers yet, but I knew one thing for sure. This betrayal was going to change everything. I just didn't know how I was going to come out on the other side. All I could do now was prepare for what was next, for whatever showdown was coming, and hope I had the strength to face it. The days that followed were a blur of planning and emotional chaos. I kept the recording devices hidden everywhere I could think of, inside the couch cushions, behind the bookshelves, even in the kitchen. Every time I saw Emily glance at her phone or whisper on the other end of a call, my heart would race, wondering if she was slipping up. Honestly, I was terrified she might catch me spying on her, but I also knew I couldn't stop. Not now. Not after what I'd uncovered. She kept acting the same bitchy, dismissive way, throwing her usual tantrums, pretending to be the victim, saying I was paranoid or overly sensitive. It was the same script she'd played 100 times before, but now I saw her for what she really was. A manipulative bitch who was willing to cheat, lie, and even betray a man who was trying to get his life together. My head hurt from all the lies, and my stomach churned every time I thought about how she'd used my therapy sessions as her secret playground. One night, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I was going to confront her directly. I knew she'd deny everything, but I didn't care. I wanted her to face her own lies, to watch her squirm when I laid out the evidence. I waited until she came home from some errand, parked in the driveway, and called her inside. When she walked through the door, I could see the smirk, that bitchy sneer she always loved to wear, like she knew she was in control. But I wasn't going to let her get the upper hand anymore. "Sit down," I said, voice steady but with a sharp edge to it. "We need to talk." She rolled her eyes but sat without arguing. I flicked on the hidden recorder I had running in my pocket and started laying out the facts, showing her the messages, the photos, the recordings from my therapy sessions where I overheard her plotting. I watched her face as I played everything back. Her eyes widened, then flashed with that familiar contempt, like she thought she could lie her way out of this. "You think you're so clever," she snapped, trying to dismiss it. "You're just paranoid. Maybe you're the one cheating who knows what you're hiding from me." I clenched my fists. "Don't even try. I have proof she's been sleeping with her therapist or someone she met through him. I heard the recordings, her talking about meetings, planning, and even sending explicit pictures. How do you explain that? She scoffed and tried to act like she was the victim. Oh, so now you're accusing me of cheating. You're just jealous because I don't want to be around your psycho trauma all the time. Maybe it's you who's got issues, not me. Her words stung, but I stayed calm, knowing that she was just trying to deflect. I knew this was her way of controlling the situation, twisting it into something I was to blame for. Look, I said, voice low and deliberate. I loved you. I gave you everything, my trust, my soul, and this is how you repay me. Sleeping around with some therapist, using my vulnerability to get your kicks. I don't even recognize you anymore. This is love, Emily, it's just betrayal. She looked furious now, eyes blazing. You don't understand what I've been through. You've been so distant, so cold. I needed someone to talk to. That's all it was, just talking. I shook my head. Talking? You think I'm stupid? I have the recordings, your planning, your lies, your scheming, and you call it just talking. You've been using my own therapy sessions, my pain against me. I trusted you. I thought you loved me. But all you've ever cared about was yourself. Her face twisted into a sneer. You're just a broken man trying to control everything. Well, I don't owe you anything anymore. I'm done pretending. If you want to throw away everything we had, go ahead. But I'll be damned if I'll stay and be your punching bag. Her words hit like a slap. I could feel my blood boiling. I'd never seen her so cold, so spiteful. That was the moment I realized I had to get out for my own sanity. Whatever happened next, I couldn't let her keep manipulating me. I told her I was done, that I'd file for divorce, and that I wanted nothing more to do with her. I had the evidence, and I was prepared to show it to a lawyer to make sure she couldn't spin her lies anymore. She yelled, called me crazy, said I was obsessed, but I didn't care. I finally saw her for what she truly was, a selfish, manipulative woman who'd used my vulnerability as a weapon. After that night, I packed a bag and left her house. I didn't want to stay, didn't want to be near her anymore. The betrayal had cut so deep I felt like I'd been hollowed out from the inside. I went to stay with a friend, trying to piece my mind back together. All I could think about was how I'd let someone so toxic into my life, how I'd trusted her to be my partner, and how she'd thrown that all away for her own selfish needs. The guilt and sadness were overwhelming, but I knew I had made the right decision. I couldn't let her continue to manipulate me, especially not now, when I was trying to rebuild myself from the ashes of what I'd thought was love. I learned a hard lesson. Some betrayals are so profound, so unexpected, that they change you forever. And I knew I'd never look at trust the same way again. I'd been naive, but now I was awakening to the fact that sometimes the people you love can turn out to be the worst enemies you'll ever face. The days after I left her house felt like a blur of raw emotion and cold clarity. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneering face, that look she always threw when she thought she was winning. The truth was, I felt like I'd been sucker punched, but at the same time, a weight had been lifted. I finally saw her for what she really was, nothing more than a selfish, manipulative bitch who used my trauma as her personal playground. Still, the ache in my chest was undeniable. I'd loved her once, and now I was left with nothing but shattered trust and a deep sense of loss. I spent hours poring over everything I'd gathered, playback recordings, messages, photos. I wanted to make sure I had all my ducks in a row. I knew I'd have to confront her again, maybe even take legal action, but I had to be prepared. I could just go into this blind. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in infidelity and emotional abuse. She told me what steps to take, how to protect myself legally, and what evidence I'd need to make my case solid. It was a brutal process, but I knew it was necessary. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this one. Meanwhile, I felt like I was spiraling inside. Part of me was numb, like I'd become a shell of the man I used to be. The other part was burning with rage. How could she do this? How could someone who claimed to love me turn around and betray me so completely? It's one thing to cheat, another to do it during my therapy sessions, during the one place I was trying to find peace. That betrayal dug into my soul. I kept questioning myself, was I ever enough? Did I love her too much? Or was I just blind, too broken to see the truth? One night, I had a long, hard conversation with my best friend, Mike. I told him everything, how I discovered her plans, her lies, her cheating. He listened silently, then finally said, "Dude, you're better off without her. She's poison. You gave her your trust, your pain, your heart, and she used it against you. That's not love, that's betrayal. You need to focus on healing now for yourself." Those words hit me hard. I realized that I'd been holding on to a fantasy, clinging to the idea that she'd change, that maybe, just maybe, we could fix this. But deep down, I knew the truth. She destroyed whatever was left of our marriage with her lies. In the days that followed, I started to put myself first. I signed up for a new therapist, someone who specializes in trauma and betrayal, and began working on rebuilding my shattered sense of self. It wasn't easy. Every day was a struggle, filled with flashes of anger, sadness, and guilt. I kept questioning if I should fight for the marriage or just cut my losses and move on. I knew she'd never truly apologize. Her ego was too big for that. All she did was deny, deflect, and blame me. That made my decision clearer. I had to walk away to protect what was left of my sanity. One thing I refused to do was contact her again. I blocked her number, her social media profiles, everything. I told myself that if she wanted to talk, she'd have to come to me. Honestly, I didn't want to hear her lies anymore. No more excuses, no more bullshit. I was done playing her game. The only thing I cared about now was healing, getting back to who I was before she tore me apart. That meant no contact, no more letting her manipulate me with her words or guilt trips. I owed myself that much. It's strange how betrayal shifts your perspective. I used to believe in the idea of forever, of loyalty and partnership. Now I see it differently. People can betray you in ways you never expected, and sometimes the only way to survive is to cut ties and start over. I almost wish I could erase all the memories, those sweet moments, the promises, the trust, all gone in an instant. But I know I can't. Instead, I choose to learn from this, to become stronger, smarter. Looking back, I realize I was naive. I wanted to believe she was the woman I loved, someone who'd stand by me through thick and thin, but her actions proved otherwise. She was just a user, a liar, hiding behind a facade of kindness and bitchy charm. I should have seen the signs, but I didn't want to believe the worst. Now I know better. Trust is fragile and betrayal can come from the people you least expect. I also learned that healing isn't linear. One day I feel angry, the next I feel numb. Sometimes I cry for the man I was, for the love I lost. Other times I tell myself I'm better off without her, and slowly I'm starting to believe it. It's a process, one I don't wish on anyone, but one that I know I have to go through to truly move on. Most of all, I have to remind myself that I'm more than my trauma, more than her betrayal. I am a survivor. I fought overseas, I fought my demons, and now I'm fighting to rebuild what's left of my life. I might not have all the answers yet, but I do know one thing. I'm done trusting her. I'm done being the victim. What I want now is peace. True peace that comes from knowing I'm finally free from her lies and manipulation. That's the thing I'm holding onto, the hope that I'll come out stronger on the other side. The final weeks have been a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I've finally cut the cord. No more calls, no more lies, no more pretending I didn't see what was right in front of me. I'm not going to lie. There's a part of me that still feels the ache of betrayal, the sting of knowing someone I loved and trusted turned out to be so hollow inside. But at the same time, I feel a strange sense of liberation. For the first time in a long while, I can breathe without looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next lie or the next betrayal. I've thrown myself into therapy, into rebuilding what's left of my life. I don't expect to forget her overnight, but I do expect to heal. I've learned a lot from this nightmare, about trust, about boundaries, and most importantly, about myself. I realize now that I was so desperate to hold onto the idea of love, I ignored the signs that she was never truly with me in the first place. I was so focused on fixing myself, I didn't see how she was actively tearing us apart. Looking back, I see how her bitchy attitude and constant lies were just her way of controlling everything. She'd twist any situation to her favor, making me doubt my instincts, my feelings, even my memories. That kind of manipulation is insidious. It's like she thrived on making me question everything. But I refuse to be that vulnerable again. I refuse to be played like a fool. I want to share this because I know a lot of people go through something similar, whether it's infidelity, betrayal, or just feeling like your partner is not who they pretended to be. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. But I also want to say this: you can survive. You can come out the other side stronger, more aware, and more resilient. It's going to hurt. The pain never fully goes away, but it does get easier with time. Most importantly, I've learned that your healing is your own. No one can do it for you, and no one can tell you how long it will take. Some days are worse than others, and that's okay. You allow yourself to grieve, to be angry, to be lost. That's part of the process, but don't get stuck there. Keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. I also found that the most important thing I can do now is to focus on myself. Get back to the things I love: working out, reconnecting with friends, and rediscovering who I am outside of this toxic relationship. I've realized I don't need someone who manipulates my trust and uses my trauma against me. I deserve better. We all do. This experience has been one of the hardest things I've ever gone through, but it's also been a wake-up call. It's shown me how much strength I have, strength I didn't always believe I had. I've faced my worst fears, and I've come out on the other side. Not unscathed, but I'm still standing. I trust that in time I'll find happiness again, maybe not with her, but with myself. And that's what counts now. So, to anyone reading this who's going through something similar, just know you're not alone. Trust is precious and betrayal cuts deep, but you can survive it. You can rebuild. And someday you'll look back at this pain and see it as the catalyst that made you stronger, because no matter how dark it gets, there's always a light waiting on the other side. You just have to keep going, keep fighting for your peace. That's what I'm doing now. And I know eventually I'll be okay.